All right, good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to start with a little bit of literacy, and we're going to continue learning about parts of speech. If you recall, yesterday we talked about how the different parts of speech are the way that we identify the different words that we use when we speak and write, and how each of the words we use plays a different role, right, in the sentence. And yesterday we started off by learning about nouns, right? So let's review. I wrote the definition on the board. A noun is a word that describes a person, a place, or a thing. Okay, so let's try to remember some examples we thought of yesterday. Let's do each of the three categories. So we have a person, right? One example of a person would be me, right? And there's different ways that we could describe me, right? There's different words we could use to describe me. So one example would be my name, right? I'm going to write this down. My name is Haley. That's a word to describe me, a person. Another word that could be used to describe me is teacher. And another word that could be used to describe me even further would be girl. Right? All of these three things that I just wrote down are words that could be used to describe me. The same thing could be used to describe you guys, right? If you think of each of you individually, you all have your own names, like my name is Haley. We have Amanda, John, Jake, Erica, etc. I'm a teacher. You guys are all students, right? So student is a noun to describe you. And you could be girls, we have boys, we have everyone in the class, right? So all of these words can be just used to describe you, who are all people, and me, who is a person as well. Okay, so let's think of some nouns that would describe places, right? Words to describe places. Right now, we're in our school. We're in a classroom, right? That's what we're sitting in, the room that we're sitting in. We call it a classroom. That's the noun that we use to describe our setting. So let's write that down. We have classroom. And then outside of the classroom, right, we have the great city that we all live in, right? We all live in the same city. And what city is that? New Orleans, right. New Orleans is a place. Just like this classroom is a place, New Orleans is a place also. And these are nouns to describe these certain places. And if you think about even bigger, the country that we're in, the United States, that's a noun to describe a place also. So when you're thinking about nouns, remember they can be to describe person, place, and things also. Okay, so let's think of some examples of things. A thing would be not a person or place, but an object. For example, this eraser is a thing, right? It can't talk, not that we know of. It doesn't eat or breathe or anything like that, but it's still a thing that exists. You can hold it in your hand, right? It's like a tangible. We call that tangible. Hold it in your hand. So an eraser would be an example of a thing. I'm holding a marker too, right? A marker is very similar to an eraser. It's the same idea. It's something that you can see. It's a noun, the word marker, because it describes this thing. And let's see, dog is another example. Dog, cat, fish. These are all things, so they would all be considered nouns, and these are the names that we use for them. Great, so we have person, place, and thing, like we reviewed yesterday. So just to go over again. Okay, so now I'm going to write a sentence on the board, and I'm going to do a couple sentences, and we're going to identify the nouns in them, and then we'll move on to our next part of speech. So let's see. The cat sleeps, right? Okay, that's a sentence. That's a full sentence. The cat sleeps. Let's think about it. So we just said that a noun is a word that describes a person, place, or thing. So let's look at these words and see if we can identify which one is the thing, right? Which one is our noun? To me, well, here's the connection, but pretend that's not there. And the thing in this sentence that is the noun, to me, would be a cat, right? Because you can picture the cat. Maybe some of you have a pet cat, maybe you like cats, maybe you don't, but a cat is an animal, right? It's a thing that we can all think about. that we can all visualize. We know what it is. So the noun to describe it is a cat. Awesome. And I also told you before, but good to be paying attention. Okay, another sentence I'm going to write, and we'll pick the noun. My brother eats. Okay, so let's think about that one. Maybe some of you have a brother, maybe some of you know people with brothers, but to me, a brother would be a person, right? It's another human that you guys would know. So the example in this sentence would be brother of the noun. Because eats, isn't necessarily, if somebody said, draw me a picture of an eats, could you do it? Could you explain what an eats is? No, you can't, right? But if someone says, draw me a picture of your brother, I'm sure some of you would have a great time doing that. So, and you could visualize it, you know what he looks like. So brother is a noun, eats is not. Okay. So those are two examples. I think we're good on nouns. If anybody has any questions about nouns, now would be the time to let me know. But we reviewed them yesterday, and I think you guys have it. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to learn about a new part of speech called a verb, okay? So let me just erase this, and we're going to write the definition of a verb. So remember, when you're writing, we'll go back to nouns for 1 second. Nouns are super important because, they're the subjects of all our sentences, right? Whenever you're writing, whenever you're talking, you're usually describing something that a noun did or something that happened to add a noun. So they're really important, and it's important to remember how to use them, but we'll get to that in a little. So now we're going to talk about verbs, right? That's our new part of speech for the day. Okay, a verb. A verb is spelled V-E-R-B. Verb. Can everybody say that? Verb, right. Okay, the way that we define a verb is a word that describes an action. Okay, so a noun is a word that describes a person, a place, or a thing, and a verb is a word that describes an action. And in this situation, action is super important to remember, okay? Because a verb is an action word. It's something that we do, right? Can everybody say that with me? A verb is an action word. It's something that we do. Right, good job. Okay, and action. So, teacher is a noun, right? Just teacher. Describing me, that's not an action though, right? But if you think about it, a teacher does something that makes her a teacher. And what would that be? Teach, right? I'm a teacher because I teach. So one example of an action be to teach, right? That's what I'm doing right now. I can demonstrate it even further. Another example of a verb could be to clap, right? Can everybody do that with me? It's an action. You can all demonstrate it. You can show it to me. I can show it to you. Clapping. Definitely a verb, right? To clap. Another example, to walk. See, I am walking. Not only am I moving, but it's what I'm doing. It's the action that I'm engaged in. So those are 3 examples of verbs, right? They're actions. They're telling us what the noun is doing. That's really what they are. They're describing the action. And it's important to remember, when you think of action, we usually think about moving around, like clapping, walking, teaching. These all require moving and talking and, a lot of stuff like that. But it's also important to remember that some verbs can be actions that don't require moving. For example, to think. I'm standing here and I could be thinking really hard but standing completely still, right? Because your mind is working but not necessarily your body. So that's important. Same with to sleep, right? Sleeping is something that you do. You're not awake, you're asleep, you're dreaming. That's still an action though, right? Because you're doing it. Even though it might not require running around and moving and all this stuff, to sleep is still a verb. So it's important to remember these things. Just because something is a verb and it's an action doesn't mean it requires physical movement. But many of them do, so it's also important to think of it like that. It's a little tricky, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. So these are our examples of verbs, which are words that describe actions: to teach, to clap, to walk, and to sleep. So now we can look at the 2 sentences that we already identified the noun in, right? So we had cat and brother. And now let's see if we can identify the verbs in these sentences, right? Because we said verbs are really important, and they have to be in every sentence in order to make it a sentence, right? You can't have a sentence without an action. That's like the main point. So if we say the cat sleeps, and cat is the noun, let's think about it. What word in the sentence is telling us what the cat is doing? What word in the sentence is describing the cat's action? I think it sleeps, right? Because you have the cat, and what it's doing is sleeping. And that's what that's telling us. So the cat sleeps, cat is the noun, and sleeps is the verb. Okay, let's look at the next one. My brother eats. Similar idea, right? We said brother is the noun, and which word is telling us what the brother is doing? That's eats. So my brother eats. Brother is the noun, and eats is the verb. Let me write one more, and we can do it together. Okay. So our teacher laughs, right? So let's think about it. The noun and the verb, right? There's a noun and a verb in the sentence. So let's see if we can identify the noun first. So which one of these is the thing? The person, the place, or the thing? I'm sorry. Which word is naming that? What do you guys think? Yeah, it's teacher, right? We've talked about that before. That's me. You're describing me. It's a word that's naming a person, right? And then the word that's telling us what the teacher is doing, ha 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 ha, it's me laughing, right? Would be laugh. It's an action. It's something that you do, and it's something that you guys all do all the time, so I'm sure you know that. Okay, so here we have teacher is the noun and laughs is the verb. Does anybody have any questions about verbs? Okay, if you do, let me know. But now we're going to move on and do an activity. I'm going to break you guys up into groups, and you're going to sit and give you a sheet with lists of sentences. And what you're going to do is you're going to underline the noun in blue of every sentence, right? So you're going to take your blue marker, you all have a blue marker, and you're going to underline the noun in every sentence in blue. And then you're going to take your green marker and identify the verb in every sentence in green. Okay, so I want you guys to work together. I want you to think about it. If you get confused, maybe try to, and you think something's a verb, maybe try to see if you can do it yourself, right? That's a good way to think about it. If you can do it, then it's probably a verb, right? So I want you guys to work together, underline, and then we'll get back together in a few minutes and discuss your answers. Okay?